It's great to have you joining us on Radio Free Georgia's In Tune to Nature program. I'm host Carrie Freeman, coming to you in June of 2023 from Atlanta in the Muskogee Creek Territory in the Piedmont region that is in the foothills of the Appalachia Mountain Range. Today, we're going to be talking about efforts to protect Georgia's Okefenokee Swamp National Wildlife Refuge. Due to the threat of mining, the Okefenokee Swamp has unfortunately been named one of America's most endangered rivers of 2023 by the organization American Rivers. One of the organizations who's trying to do something about this as part of a wide alliance of wilderness and water protectors is the Georgia River Network, and their executive director, Rena Peck, is joining us today. Let me tell you about her and her organization. The Georgia River Network is a nonprofit founded in 1998 to help protect Georgia's rivers from all the misuse of water and pollution as Atlanta was sprawling and developing. Their mission is to be the voice of Georgia's rivers to help everyone enjoy, connect, and advocate for economically vital and clean flowing rivers. Their website is garivers.org. That's Georgia Rivers, garivers.org. And you can add actually /protect Okefenokee, and that gets you to the part that we're talking about today. Or you can also see the efforts of the Alliance of Park Protectors at the website protectokefenokee.org. Both of those websites have gorgeous photos and videos, and they also have action items and then interesting maps and ecological and recreational information too. I'm very impressed with the information on the websites. Our guest is Rena Peck, who joined Georgia River Network as its executive director in 2019. Previously, Rena spent 17 years as contract ecologist to Coca-Cola, developing projects to help the company achieve its water neutrality goals, as well as creating plastics recovery initiatives to reduce marine debris. Rena also worked for 9 years as a restoration ecologist for the Nature Conservancy and served as director of science and development for the Georgia Land Trust. Rena has served on the boards of the Southeast Watershed Forum and Wilderness Works, which connects Atlanta's homeless children with nature. She holds a master's degree in renewable natural resources from the University of Arizona College of Agriculture and a bachelor's degree from UGA. Rena is a certified ecologist by the Ecological Society of America and is trained as Alliance for Water Stewardship Associate and is an Institute for Georgia Environmental Leadership 2019 graduate. Welcome, Rena.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, let's start by explaining what's so special about the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge.
Wow. Well, it is the largest wildlife refuge east of the Mississippi. It is one of the world's largest naturally, ecologically driven freshwater systems, 438,000 acres, which is 650 square miles of wilderness. And the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge protects 93% of this entire swamp area. It's a magical place. I encourage everybody to come visit. You'll be surprised by alligators and birds and just the extraordinary beauty and the diversity of a mosaic of, over 20 different vegetation communities, from old-growth cypress to pine flatwoods, and then, of course, the swampy area itself, which is not as you would think. It is not a deep lake. It is a very shallow swamp, just to a foot and to 3 feet deep. So this fragility of the Okefenokee lies in the precariousness of its ability to hold water. And mining on Trail Ridge, which serves as the hydrogeologic dam to the swamp, would risk lowering the water level in the swamp, and there's just not much wiggle room there because it's already so shallow.
Yeah. And it's a black water swamp, but sometimes we might think, oh, does that mean it's dirty, or why is it black? I've seen something about that on the website.
Right. It is the largest blackwater swamp, and the blackwater is from tannins in the leaves. So think about your tea. When you drink tea, the color of your water turns brown, but that's not because it's dirty. It's that's from the tannins and the leaves and the debris. So the Okefenokee is rare in that it's a headwater wetland. It's not a wetland at the end of a river, but it's actually the source of two rivers, the Swanee River, which flows to the Gulf, and then the St. Mary's River, which is our Georgia-Florida line, which empties out by Cumberland Island.
Wow. And is the Okefenokee on a tentative list to be considered for UNESCO World Heritage Site status?
Yes, and that's very, very exciting. It would be the
Yeah,
first national wildlife refuge ever that the United States has nominated for a natural area World Heritage designation.
because
So
they're
it would
usually
be,
the parks, like our big parks,
yes,
like the Everglades is one is that's close to us, and then the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, but none of the many wildlife refuges. I didn't realize that none of them are designated as UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
that's right. This is really the star in the crown of the National Wildlife Refuge system,
Yeah,
and takes a lot to manage as well. There's lots of natural fires, and they have a let it burn policy because it is wilderness, but the
right.
most expensive fires in the history of the Fish and Wildlife Service come out of the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge.
And what types of species call the Okefenokee Swamp home?
Well, it's pretty unparalleled biodiversity wise. There's over 850 species of plants, including this gigantic Okefenokee um, pitcher plant.
Oh,
There's 48 different mammals, um, all the way up to large mammals like the Florida panther and the black bear, which need large home ranges.
right.
And then 238 birds. And it becoming a national wildlife refuge was because of the extraordinary wading birds that are found there. 39 fish and 90 reptiles and amphibians. And of course, the most iconic reptile is our American alligator there at the swamp.
And you're pretty much like if you go on one of those, I've been a couple times, and if you go on one of those little boat tours, you're pretty much guaranteed to see an alligator because there's thousands of them that get to live there. There's not many places where they can live without people seeing them as a threat or wanting them to get rid of them.
Right,
You know,
right. It's extraordinary. Yes, there are more alligators than there are people in that are in the town,
wow.
and they UGA researchers have been studying them, and just Mother's Day recently, and they've studied one mother that still visits her children. She'll go to a lagoon to go visit her 7-year-old son. He'll crawl up on her back, and they'll bask in the sunshine together.
Oh,
So it's pretty
wow.
neat what we've been learning about the alligators and how most
Oh.
reptiles, are not maternal, but these certainly are.
Oh, that's so interesting that because yeah, we don't necessarily think of that particular alligator species as having more of a family life, but that's
Right.
interesting that they have a sense of place and um yeah, that's so great that we can find out. The more we find out about every individual animal, the more we realize we've underestimated them. That's the way I tend to see things. And then
That's right.
when you go there, you're definitely going to see so many birds. Like I remember seeing a beautiful owl, as well as all the
Hmm.
wading birds. And it's great for birds that are migrating through. They need places to stop like this to feed as well.
That's right. One of the species is the sandhill crane, and
Mm.
it goes back to when you're at the swamp, you feel like you're in a primeval place, and then you'll hear the sandhill crane, and it sounds like a pterodactyl, and
Oh,
you feel like
God.
you're in Jurassic Park. It's quite amazing. And then, of course, the endangered replicated woodpecker and other endangered and rare species from the uplands along the longleaf pond that they're restoring, the eastern indigo snake and gopher tortoise are important. So around the swamp, they're upper level um, areas where the pines grow and where private landowners have tree farms and blueberry farms and such. And then that's on Trail Ridge. And then part of Trail Ridge is also within the National Wildlife Refuge itself, where the proposed titanium mine would like to be is at
Yeah.
the southeastern corner of the National Wildlife Refuge on Trail Ridge.
And for a bit of background, how did Georgia River Network get involved in defending the Okefenokee once the titanium mine proposal was discovered?
Well, I went down to a meeting in Folkestone, then another one in St. George, where the mining company was presenting their proposal to the community and discovered that they weren't looking at any potential impacts on the Okefenokee swamp
That's
itself.
ridiculous.
Yeah, it
Oh
was
my
quite
gosh.
incredible. So that led me to be concerned, and coming from working with corporations, I understand, and actually was an environmental consultant for a while, helping firms with mining, with the idea that if it can't be grown, it's got to be mined. Well, it needs to be mined in the right place. So I was thinking perhaps it could happen, but as soon as I learned that pumping groundwater as far away as our Georgia coast has affected the water level in the swamp, I knew that it wasn't going to pan out for this
Yeah.
company. And then looking into their permit application with 1.44 million gallons a day of groundwater pumped, that would mean water leaving underneath the swamp and next to the swamp, and drawing groundwater away from the swamp and infecting the water level itself. We have a lot more science than we did back in 2019 when this first came up. And Dr. Rhett Jackson of UGA's Warnell School of Forestry has been able to estimate that the southeastern portion of the swamp would go drier for longer periods of time, 3 times as much, for 3 times as long. So already drought affects the swamp. It's just a rainwater fed swamp, and it being so shallow. And Georgia River Network, we are the state's nonprofit conservation partner managing the Georgia Water Trails program. And there's 120 miles of the Okefenokee Wilderness Canoe Trail in the Refuge. And we want to protect the ability to get into the swamp for those researchers with UGA, for the tourists that come and supply so many jobs to the community. And then, of course, certainly to protect the wildlife itself.
And then a whole lot of people, like you, are part of the big Protect Okefenokee Alliance. Like it seems like you all got really, I mean, so many organizations got really organized really quickly and then put together these sophisticated website resources. And what are some of the things that you all have done so far to protect the swamp?
Right. We helped form the Okefenokee Protection Alliance, which is about 40 different groups, local, statewide, and even national. So just raising awareness, from fact sheets to being in the community at local festivals, to making sure that people knew that they could comment and send letters of concern to the Environmental Protection Division on the mining proposal itself. Georgia River Network helped create a movie called Okefenokee Destiny, which you can find on our website. It's a love letter from the swamp, with the concern of the threat of mining and the idea of comparing it to the Everglades as a cautionary tale of what you don't want to happen to our naturally functioning swamp here. And then another movie was made by the Okefenokee Protection Alliance called Sacred Waters. And we made a little movie for the American Rivers announcement as one of the most endangered waterways. We've done lots of things, from dress up like alligators down at the Capitol to being at Music Midtown up on the jumbo screen. I've been working with Representative Darlene Taylor. She's a Republican out of Thomasville who sponsors the Okefenokee Protection Act, House Bill 71. And the Georgia Water Coalition is helping with that. The bill would ban mining on the Okefenokee portion of Trail Ridge, and it's largely Republican led. The earlier signers were chairs of important committees and Republican, and then more Democrats signed on to the tune of as many legislators as you need to pass the bill itself. So we already have a majority that want to pass it on the floor, but the bill itself needs to pass through the House Natural Resources and Environment Committee, and did not come to a vote last year. And we hope that this session it will come out for a vote early in the session so that it can then pass the floor and then pass through the Senate. But right now it's being held up in that committee.
would that be like August, September or something of 2023 that it might get
The
considered again?
Yeah, the session starts in January. So
Oh,
during the
January.
summer, yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
during the summer and fall, we're trying to get the word out for
Okay.
people to contact their legislators to sign on to the bill itself, and also write the governor and encourage not just the denial of this mining permit application, which would be 500 or so acres, but what's at risk are over 40,000 acres. So the the mining permit proposal, if it's denied, that would stop this phase one of mining, but the Okefenokee Protection Act would protect the Okefenokee from mining on Trail Ridge forever.
Ugh, that would be so important. And you mentioned some of the problems with mining on Trail Ridge next to the Okefenokee from kind of a water standpoint, but there's also like noise pollution and light pollution and other ways, that the wildlife would be disturbed, right?
Oh, truly. So imagine camping out on one of the floating docks there. You've paddled in and you're looking for the stars of the internationally named dark sky, and you hear something off to the east, and you see some light off to the east from these mining operations, which
Mhm.
really get lit up like a spaceship. That's going to change your wilderness experience. In the wilderness, you're not supposed to hear motors or see any kind of artificial light. So that would impact the tourism piece of it. But certainly the noise pollution, light pollution, water levels, um, and increased wildfires that would occur because lowering the water level also dries up the peat, causing a naturally high fuel load during periods of time when normally that wouldn't happen. So that could destroy fragile habitats and harass, harm, and in some instances kill the wildlife.
Right. If you're just joining us on Radio Free Georgia, this is In Tune to Nature. I'm host Carrie Freeman talking with ecologist Rena Ann Peck, executive director at the Georgia River Network, about collective efforts to protect Georgia's Okefenokee Swamp National Wildlife Refuge, which is threatened by a proposed titanium dioxide mine. Websites of interest with gorgeous videos and important action items can be found at garivers.org /protect Okefenokee. Another website is protectokefenokee.org. Rena, what would you say is the like ratio of those who are against mining and those that are for mining? Because from what I understand, there's pretty widespread support and almost seems bipartisan. And there's not that many entities that are even wanting mining.
Right. It is truly bipartisan, as is most outdoor recreation areas for protection. The people that want it are the people that can benefit from leasing their land out to mining and the mining companies themselves. So this is just a handful of people.
Right, that's very
The
true.
people that are in town themselves are scared to death.
Yeah.
And people across the nation, around the world, have written in over 100,000 letters to the Environmental Protection Division
Wow.
and the governor um, with concerns against mining next to the swamp. There were two um, public hearings online that EPD held, and all of the people who spoke up were against the mine, except for, of course, the Georgia Mining Association. So it does have bipartisan support. There has been lots of support across our state and then around the swamp itself, with resolutions that have been signed by county and city leaders. So the Georgia
Right.
Municipal Association is behind the Okefenokee Protection Act as well.
That's great. Well, what are the politics of getting this mining permit denied and to prevent future mining projects? I mean, you mentioned for the future we could hopefully pass the Okefenokee Protection Bill, but in terms of getting this mining permit denied, is that something that the Governor Kemp can do, or like how it yeah, how can we make that happen? I mean, we've already overwhelmed the Environmental Protection Division with a lot of inputs, majority saying we don't want this. This is a bad idea. So, I mean, what else can we do?
Sure. I think that all of us can send in a letter or call the governor's office, especially people who've supported him. And really, it is up to the Environmental Protection Division to make a decision, based in science. And we've been drumming up the evidence that they need to deny the mining permit based on incompatible land use. So the Surface Mining Act in it says that a permit can be denied if land use is incompatible with their area. Certainly, mining is incompatible with the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge because Fish and Wildlife Service has said that mining there will affect wetlands in the swamp. And then you could go on to say that it would affect private property rights along the ridge itself with increased wildfires escaping. And that, unlike Southwest Georgia, where forestry uses a lot of prescribed burning for quail habitat, here on Trail Ridge, they don't use fire, so do not want fire on their land. And the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge has worked really hard with the Greater Okefenokee Association of Landowners to try to figure that out, to have a fire resiliency buffer around the swamp where there are uplands where you can fight the fire and put it out, because when it's in the swamp, you can't get to it.
Right. And also just the fact that if it's a wildlife refuge, we need to put the wildlife first. And so we shouldn't be mining.
Right.
That's
Right. Right. It is a wildlife refuge, but it is also such a public resource and the basis of the tourism economy. So we wouldn't want to risk 900 jobs that are sustainable year after year for the jobs that the Twin Pines mining site is promised that would only last during the duration of the mine. And with UNESCO World Heritage coming, if that happens, we'll get more international tourism,
right.
and that would be such a big boon for Georgia. Because to me, the Okefenokee is part of our brand. Just like people from around the world come to Georgia and they want to experience Martin Luther King, they also want to experience alligators in the swamp.
Yeah. We only have like a minute left, but Rena, for listeners who are interested in protecting the Okefenokee, what are some action items they can take related to this mine or just in general for continuous protection?
One easy thing to do is just text the word swamp to 52886. So if you text
52886 would be the number that you text the word swamp.
That's right.
Okay.
Right. So text 52886 and put in your text the word swamp, and you'll get a link that will lead you to be able to send a letter to your local legislator. Automatically, it will thank that legislator if the legislator has already signed on to the Okefenokee Protection Act. If that legislator is not signed on yet, then it will ask them to do so. A letter can also be sent to the governor and to the Environmental Protection Division as well. So those are three things you can do. A fourth idea is to go to the swamp itself. And a fifth idea is to come support Georgia River Network. We are having our 25th anniversary gala at 42 West on September 8th. And the Muskogee chief of the Muskogee Creek Nation is coming from Oklahoma because Chief David Hill proclaimed Trail Ridge along the Okefenokee as a sacred site.
Wow.
So this is very important area to the Muskogee Creek Nation and certainly to the wildlife and Georgians and Americans in the world.
That's awesome. And tell us one last time your website.
My website is GARIVERS.org.
Okay. Well, that's the end of our show, but I want to thank you, Rena and Peck, for being with us on Radio Free Georgia's In Tune to Nature program. Thanks for the work you and the Georgia River Network are doing with the alliance of dozens of other citizen groups to protect the Okefenokee wetland habitat.
Thank you so much, and I hope you can visit soon.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to In Tune to Nature, broadcasting every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, online at wrfg.org and on Atlanta radio station 89.3 FM. We post action items, news, and podcasts on the show's website, facebook.com/In Tune to Nature. The views and opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect those of WRFG, its board, staff, or volunteers. I'm one of those volunteers. I'm host Carrie Freeman, asking you to please support independent, non-commercial media like Radio Free Georgia. And remember to take care of yourself and others, including other species, like the thousands of species who live in and around rivers and wetlands. Thank you for listening. Cheers.